So the military trained you on Russian?
And then I did Arabic, and then after 9/11, I had to learn Pashto very quickly. You then go on to your applied training, which is basically, in layman's terms, your spy training.
Fresh on the back of filming Hunted.
Absolutely. You got to think like a fugitive then, and you got to get your criminal mastermind approach to it and think, what would I do?
Hugely successful in your field. TV personality, you might not want to accept that, but you are. How the hell does that go wrong in the education system for you with ADHD?
When somebody asks you when you're in primary school what you want to be, you think big, no?
Astronaut.
You know, so exactly, that's exactly what I wanted to be. But in secondary school, that seemed to disappear, and realistic sort of approach to life kicked in, thinking, well, what do I need to do? We've all got superpowers within us. We haven't got our instruction booklet for our own brains.
And let's look at Paul, the ADHD, the person with ADHD that's been successful. What would be your core message to the next generation?
What would you do if you couldn't fail? Don't worry about failing. What would you want to be? What could you do?
Paul, welcome.
Thank you very much.
And thanks ever so much for joining us today. Real privilege.
Fresh on the back of filming Hunted.
Absolutely.
And it was Jordan Wiley, worth a mention, who's been sitting here filming with us, who connected us, right?
Yeah, I've been with Jordan for the last 7 weeks filming Hunted. Well, 4 weeks for Hunted, and then 3 weeks on Celebrity Hunted.
Yeah.
So it was full throttle.
We were talking off camera about you and Jordan having that kind of almost the super brain, if you like, to outthink and hunt literally the contestants. Elaborate on that from an ADHD point of view.
Well, from an ADHD perspective, us ADHDers spin a lot of plates all the time, but I tend to thrive when I'm spinning a lot of plates, and it's knowing what plates to focus on at what particular time. So Hunted, we have long days. I'm a ground hunter, so out and about in our black Volvo XC90, there's 2 ground hunters in the vehicle, and then we have 2 camera guys, a producer director and assistant producer in the back of the car as well. We've got cameras on us, we've got cameras in the vehicle, and there's many, many hundreds of hours footage filmed for 1 hour on the TV. So you're mic'd up all the time, you're always on the go. So it can be, when I first did it, it was like, my God, you're always, you're at max chat. You're revved up for anything at any given time. But straight away, within the first, going back a few years now, when you're a day or 2 in, you realize that you're absolutely hanging because your central nervous system is to the full. And you see people like Jordan there, and it's like, well, how are you managing it? You've got to learn to pick and choose, basically. And you've got to realize that what are the signs in the car when things are getting a little bit heated, when the rest of the team sort of kick in, or you can see a lot of camera activity, then you know you're getting ready for something. So you literally zone in on when you're going to be required to perform, so to speak. And you can think about things. And of course, we're both from the military background. So Jordan's done quite a bit on the intelligence side of things in the UK military. Myself, I did 23 years in the UK military, predominantly on the intelligence side of things as well. So we're used to spinning those metaphorical plates and choosing which ones to choose at any given time. But going into TV, you've got different clues to look for. And of course, on the show, we are head-tailing out around the country, chasing fugitives. And they can do anything. They can go anywhere and literally pull the rabbit out of the hat at any time they want. But you've got to think like a fugitive then. And you've got to get your criminal mastermind approach to it and think, what would I do? And you get their background, you get their backstories within a matter of a few hours since they launch on this big run. The HQ in London provide us with an intelligence picture. So we're looking through profiles as we're driving around the country to where our first sort of rendezvous point is to go and interview members of families, friends, whatever, and pick up a sort of the breadcrumb trail to these fugitives. And you just lock in on that then. And then you just treat it like a military operation. Because of course, Jordan and myself are really, really pretty good at doing things like that. So there's a bit of a competition with us and the police on the show as well. And we have police ground hunters who are our brethren, who are detectives, who are very, very talented. But Jordan and I then have a little bit of an official sort of scorecard then, that how many captures we get regarding sort of our police brethren. And it's all done in good humour.
I love that. There's a proper connection here, right? Ex-policeman,
yeah,
but all the courses.
It's good banter.
Absolutely.
And you thrive on it.
I can feel it. There's a passion in you. There's an energy there. As you start to
Yeah.
describe it. You talked about the ADHD in you and spinning the metaphorical plates and what have you, and being able to do that. And having met Jordan, I can see the comparison in your profile, his profile, and being able to do that. Let's wind the clock back a bit, because that's where ADHD has been really good for you and provided that. Let's go all the way back. One hell of a career, as we've discovered. Let's go back to the young Paul. When do you think you got that realization?
I got that realization, I would say it's that epoch, isn't it? Pre-COVID.
Yeah.
That timestamp that we now have for the last few years. And it was prior to that, I had a good friend, Andrew Whitehouse, I think you might know him. And he's a neurotherapist. And he was diagnosed officially with ADHD. And we're the only people I know of my friendship group, really, we can talk, to use military parlance, in duplex.
Yeah.
He can talk at the same time as me. So we talk over one another. But we have an understanding, and we can have literally two conversations going on at the same time. And I'm the only person at that time with Andrew that he could say, that he said, we're cut from the same cloth here. I'm ADHD, you're 100% ADHD. I thought, well, I kind of get it. It fits the profile. And when I turned the clock back then to when I was younger, I was born 1969. I was born 2 months premature. I was 4 pound born. So it was touch and go for a while that I'd make it, and so would my mum. Came through that, but I was very hyper child. My mum would recount stories many times that I would be up late at night, I wouldn't settle in bed, or put me to bed, I'd wake up and they'd, what's that noise? And I'd be out of my bed and I'd be organizing my cars or sorting books or doing something or playing in my bedroom, albeit quietly. So getting under the radar, so to speak, but I was always on the go. And then in school, I loved primary school. I thrived in primary school. So being from the Rhondda Valley in my primary school, my nana taught me to play chess. So very long story short, I ended up being in the Welsh Under-18 Chess Championship at the age of 10. Although my school teacher in primary school put me in the wrong age category, and I ended up playing the seniors. So did very well on it, thank you very much. But on the back of that, I set up the school chess club. And then I found that I would finish lessons quickly in primary school, because it's all about being creative in primary school. And it's not all about sort of chubby crayons and everything else. The school that I went to in Pontypridd was just brilliant at bringing you out of you, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it was great. And it wasn't standards and ticks in the boxes, Ofsted, and all that type of stuff. It was like finding you. And I'd finish my lessons really, really quickly. They'd give you a crib sheet of mathematics or English, and we do projects on things. And I used to love it. And I'd finish it and go, Miss, what can I do now? I thought about starting a school newspaper. So in junior school, I set up a school newspaper before we had computers in the classroom. So this was late 70s. So I became the editor because it was my idea. Didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I had other guys then doing crosswords. We'd have different things from the rugby team and the football team, what they did. We'd have little reports into that. And I'd write it out in felt tip pen. And then the school secretary would photocopy it, and that would go out to parents as a newsletter.
It's brilliant. It's like leadership and entrepreneurship really young, right?
How old were you at this time?
9, 10.
That's what I mean.
It's bonkers, isn't it?
So that was always inherent within me. And then literally in secondary school was a nightmare for me. Literally had to travel several miles up the valley to a big comprehensive school. And it was rough. The discipline was nigh on non-existent. Everything was closing around there. The mines were closing down. Steelwork industry was sort of going through a bad patch. And so there's a lot of unemployment, drug use. You were seeing that as well, people on the streets and everything else, not necessarily in the school, but obviously in that sort of area. There wasn't a lot of aspiration around. And I was a global thinker, for want of a better word.
Ambitious.
Because back in the day of VHS video, I used to record the holiday program and Wish You Were Here with Judith Chalmers. Now, other kids of sort of that age going through puberty, you're watching other dodgy videos.
Baywatch.
I would be go home at night, and others, and I would be watching Wish You Were Here, and it was from looking at foreign lands. I used to watch them on a rainy day and see sort of the presenters in Morocco riding a camel, in Japan, sort of looking at the cherry blossom sort of festivals and things like that. And I can remember them clear as day now. I want to travel. I want to get around this world. But of course, from not a poor background, but working class background. And sort of the first time I went overseas was when I was in mid-teens. I think I went to Mallorca with mum and dad on a holiday type thing. And then, but even traveling then, sort of, I was excited by it. Flying first time on a plane when I was like 14 or something. And again, that enthralled me and sort of led to the career path into the Royal Air Force eventually. But that foreign connection, listening to languages and everything else and piecing things together. And I was sat in this comprehensive school with a bin being set on fire, somebody getting stabbed with a compass. And I got a teacher trying to teach me relevance when they can't control relevance in the class. The kids are rioting. And I'm thinking, why should I listen to you if you can't instill what is in this curriculum that's relevant to me? I want to learn about business. I wanted to learn about my brain, because I found they were teaching me things that I thought, well, when am I ever going to use that?
No relevance.
No relevance.
Sitting here now, you speak 4 languages, and you're in a huge sort of academic side to you. So did you teach yourself? Did you have to remove yourself from that environment to then learn it?
I'll tell you what I found. I found in primary school, I thought I was, when somebody asks you when you're in primary school what you want to be, you think big, don't you?
Astronaut.
You know, so exactly. That's exactly what I wanted to be. I was fascinated by the moon, space travel, everything, different sort of stars in the sky and sort of everything. I was enthralled by space travel and flying as well. So I was really, I had books on it. I used to read up on it. Again, watch a lot of things on TV that would come on that you could see in the TV times and record on your VHS. So all my collection was building. And it just, where was the relevance? There was no relevance. But in secondary school, that seemed to disappear. And realistic sort of approach to life kicked in, thinking, well, what do I need to do here? So going on from that, with the language learning in the military, because I joined into the Royal Air Force and I went into an intelligence trade. Eventually then we mustered across to the flying to aircrew side of things and some special projects. But I found the language learning incredibly difficult because I got my 5 O-levels in school. I stayed on to do A-levels, but I didn't up my game. And the school, basically, I didn't put the effort in, but I think the school didn't also pinpoint that there was a swathe of lads that were basically going under the radar. It looked like we were trading, we were doing okay, we were going to do all right, and then we crashed and burned. But I felt then at that time, you got huge imposter syndrome looking back. Because I was thinking, well, oh my God, I'm rubbish.
Let's pick that up for a second then, because there's a lot in what you've just said, which I want to anchor back to, because I think people will have heard that and then trying to correlate that to where they are. First of all, we start with where you are now, but I want to wind back very quickly. Hugely successful in your field. TV personality, you might not want to accept that, but you are. And successful military career. Those languages, just say again what those languages were.
Russian was the first language that I learned, because basically it was the end of the Cold War when I joined.
Yeah. So the military trained you on Russian. Yeah.
And then I did Arabic,
yeah,
which is an interpretership. And then after 9/11, I had to learn Pashto, which is one of the languages in Afghanistan, very quickly.
So those 3 languages are not your Spanish, French, and German, are they?
No.
They're not traditional languages to learn. You've learned them for the military purpose, but there's you crashing and burning at your A-levels. Okay. Many a person with ADHD, when the education system doesn't grip them properly or enough, can navigate through those GCSEs, those O-levels, what they're called, through their own natural intelligence. You can bullshit your way through those. You can blag those. You get to A-level, and that's where it gets sorted out. And if you don't get that transitional help, you will crash and burn. And university is the other one. Yet here you are with this capability, this ability. Everything about you says intelligence, not just the roles you played in the past, but you don't learn those 3 languages, become fluent in those 3 languages without some brain capacity to do stuff. It's a sweet spot for the way your brain works. How the hell does that go wrong in the education system for you with ADHD? And yet it's all there latent, waiting to be discovered. Where's that gone wrong in the system?
It's pretty straightforward, really. I do a lot of school talks, going in and enthusing mainly boys or naughty boys to engage in language learning, because they see it a bit not manly to learn a foreign language. And what's the point? Whenever I go on holidays, we just speak louder in English and sort of shout our orders to waiters and that type of stuff. It's a very simplistic way of looking at things. But from a brain power perspective, when I started my Russian course, the pass mark for military language learning was 75%. And I failed my first two convincingly. I was in a dormitory, a 10-man dormitory barrack block. So they had guys from my course on there and some from a course that was that joined us then who were behind us, a few months behind. But ultimately, you'd be there at night. You didn't have a desk. You had a bed, a chest of drawers, and a wardrobe. And then you'd have a TV in the room as well. Now, a lot of these guys had come in from A-levels, college, or university, already having a language base, whereas I hadn't had a language base because I did CSE French, which was lesser than an O-level back in the day. And I think I got the equivalent to a D, which is the highest I could get for O-level equivalence type of thing. Although I enjoyed the language learning, I found the writing aspect of it a little bit wonky, and I didn't really apply myself. So from my perspective, what I know now is that I didn't have enough white matter going on in my head, because the 2 years I had studying or not studying for my A-levels, I wasn't even treading water. I was going backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't firing in all cylinders. I was being lazy to a certain degree. I just adopted the same level as everybody else around me, just to be to blend in and to not be bullied, I think.
So you're in the military.
Yeah.
You've failed 2 exams.
Yeah.
You presumably got your act together then.
We had a Russian teacher. His nickname was Baz, Alyosha Basilevich, who was ex-Russian intelligence services, we were led to believe. And I had a chat with him, and because I was going to be recoursed, I could see it happening. And he said, Pavel, which is Russian for Paul, you have a problem with your vocabulary. And if I sound like a meerkat, that's my Russian accent coming out. But
pretty convincing,
good,
to be fair.
It? And I said, yeah, you're telling me I got a problem with the vocabulary. He goes, how are you learning it? So I said, well, at night, I said, and the lads on my course would verify this as well, that I would come home to the barrack block, I'd have my tea in the cookhouse, I'd have a shower, I'd sit in my bed, and I would be sat in my bed with my vocab sheet, with a piece of paper over one side and going down column, learning the vocabulary. Because without the vocabulary, that's the building blocks for your language. And then you're doing projects during that week then, talking about things, listening to things in the language lab, you get your headphones on with those vocabulary, with those words. And if you haven't got those words in your head, it's nigh on impossible. And he goes, right, so you learn it like what? I said, so say 5:30 till 9 o'clock, I am on my bed and I am learning the vocabulary. He goes, right, so you're definitely doing that? I went, yes. He goes, flashcards. Your brain needs flashcards. He says, also, I think you're dyslexic. I went, what do you mean? I've heard of dyslexia, but I didn't really know what it meant. I went, what does that mean? He goes, did you have difficulty writing when you were younger? I went, I can remember doing D's and B's and P's the wrong way around and stuff when I was younger. I said, but I'll call my mum. So I went back to the phone box, put your old money, your 10p's in, phoned mum and said, what was it like learning to read and write? She goes, you learned to read really, really quickly and everything else, but your writing was a bit different because you did what I just said. I remember saying it many years ago. So I thought, right, what do I do to learn this vocab? So on the base, they had a reprographic section, and you go around there, and for bribing the guys with a few beers, they created hundreds of flashcards, chopped up already for you, all the same size, with elastic bands. So in lessons, I'd be writing down the vocabulary, Russian word on one side, English on the other. And then I found my own method. So I got out, and I used to go to the church on camp, which is always unlocked. I had a word with the padre, which was great because he had a really good coffee machine as well. He said, help yourself to a coffee. So I had a nice coffee machine, peace and quiet in the church. I go there, literally 5:30. By 7 o'clock, I was done.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going in. And my method was I'd have 5 words at a time. So I'd do, look at the English, look at the Russian, put it down, do it down. Once I got those 5 literally going round, no problem, I put that pile of 5 to one side, get another pile of 5, do that. Once I've got 2 piles of 5 that I know, I shuffle them together, because what I was doing when I was learning it on the bed, this is what I'm knowing now for the Masters in Cognitive Science, is that I was cramming those words in to the, how can I put it, the flash memory of my brain. It was going into the RAM. It wasn't going into the long-term memory.
No hard drive.
No, yeah.
If it's linear, you didn't have the capability to dissect that linear nature, dive in where you needed to dive into, and make sense of it.
No.
But the ADHD, perhaps I'm saying the ADHD brain is work with random, use random as a strength, build off random, get it embedded, and then it'll be there for free call, recall when you
And
want
that's
it.
exactly what's happened.
And school, going back to the question, presumably school didn't give you that way of learning, entice you to learn that way, encourage, motivate you to learn that way, and allowed you to coast and then fail.
They didn't light the fire underneath me. And that's where I thrive, is push me.
You can feel the energy in you when you talk about those things. There is a very tangible energy in you. Military, full of structure.
Yep.
Full of scaffolding around you, really.
Yes. Yeah.
That must have suited you then at that time.
It was good. I've always been one for physical education, going to the gym, looking after myself in body. I've not really looked after myself in mind until I realized how powerful it was, and that we've all got superpowers within us. We haven't got our instruction booklet for our own brains. And I've just worked mine out over many years. I've made mistakes along the line of life up to where I am now, and I still do. But you've got to learn quickly on that and realize where you're going wrong and correct it. And what I found is learning the sort of language thing, when I did the flashcards, all of a sudden I learned stuff and I could build on that, and then your confidence level rises.
Yeah.
But that way of learning, so I use flashcards for everything. So, the talks I give, I don't prepare for. Today, it's not prepared. This is coming in. Everything's loaded. It's there and it's current. Which way it comes out, I don't know. I can talk for Great Britain, but ultimately, it's all in there. And I've got a thirst for knowledge now that I never had in school.
I can feel that, because the purpose was missing. We talked about purpose a lot. But you mentioned the word earlier that if I had to sum up one word of where I was going to go with the conversation in my head, it was discipline. And you brought it up earlier. And that's kind of similar to what you just asked, that sort of framework and scaffolding you get. But a lot of people that we speak to, and I can relate myself to, sort of almost rebelling against the system, rebelling against discipline, not wanting to be trapped by conformity. It doesn't feel like you struggled at, but it feels like the purpose was there. The desire to be doing what you're doing needed to be there, and then you thrive with discipline.
Yeah, very much so. What I found as well, when I first joined the military, I'm from the Rhondda Valley, and I used to train. I trained hard for the Royal Air Force. But at that time in the late 80s, I think it was a show about the parachute regiment. There was one about the Royal Marines on the TV, and I saw their training regiment. And I pretty much trained like that. So I'd run with a backpack over a mountain called Eglursullen Mountain. So I'd run from Pontypridd over to another village called Abertridor, or town, over this mountain, train, and run back with a backpack. And then I came to Lincolnshire to train for the Royal Air Force.
Good luck.
And it's flat. So all of a sudden, I was whizzing around and everything else. And after the basic square bashing training, I got overall best recruit. I've never won anything before in my life. And it's like, so there's 240 of us on the intake, I think. And I got overall best recruit. I thought, brilliant. Thank you for that. So, give it to mum and dad. It's on their mantelpiece, so to speak. But that then enthused me. And then the Royal Air Force is very good. In fact, the military is very good at spotting talent. So on my Russian course, having failed those first 2 progress tests, the penny dropped. And then eventually I came top. And with a high language grade. And they went, I want you to do your language training. You then go on to your applied training, which is basically, in layman's terms, your spy training. So you do that, and then you qualify, and then you go off to your base, wherever that may be, and you become an intelligence specialist. But I got my Arabic course within 2 years of that, and it was the first in the Royal Air Force to have an Arabic interpretership, and I was selected on merit because of my scores on the Russian side of things. So it builds on that, and then what the military is really good at is if you've got ideas, or if you're spotting things, or if you're spotting trends, or if you're identifying something or different ways of doing things, they'll listen. So they're not going, no, you don't do it that way. They'll go, show me. And all of a sudden you'd show different methods, whether you're using technology or just you're noggin up here to think differently about this is how we can do this better. And they take it on board. And then all of a sudden you find you're getting accolades for being quite entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial, I guess, because you're inside the business.
That's really inspiring for people to listen and hear that. And you just used the word entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
So we connected through the entrepreneur community. And there are countless entrepreneurs, whether they've sat here or that we know, that would say they're unemployable. They couldn't conform to, working in a job and so on. But then they found the purpose and the passion and the relentless drive to smash it as an entrepreneur. Relating that to that kind of elite sort of soldier, if you like, military personnel, someone pointed out to you that you may well have ADHD, and you connected with Jordan as a friend and so on. Do you now recognize that a lot of those people in the elite kind of military side of things are neurodivergent?
Without a doubt, 100%. I know quite a few of the guys that are on the show for Channel 4 SAS Days Wins, and obviously on the Hunted fraternity as well, like in hand on heart say neurodivergent.
I thought you'd say that.
Full on.
And one thing to add to that, sitting here now, we kind of had this chat briefly off camera. There's a real physical masculine presence about you. There's a strength, but there's real vulnerability in actually being able to talk about the fact that you have ADHD when countless people don't. Do you think that's something that by being very vocal and deliberately sort of putting it out there, Jordan's the same, is actually giving people the chance? Because there's people that hide behind it. They are masking, right?
Who's normal? Who is the normal benchmark out there? I don't see a normal benchmark out there. Those who are able to fit into the education system and do a 9 to 5, well done. It's like that analogy, isn't it? If the whole world was a village, you'll need a village idiot. You need people to be staying home, sort of teaching children and looking after them and everything else. You need the lookouts that are hyper-vigilant, looking out for, I don't know, dinosaurs, wolves, whatever they may be back in the day, coming over the horizon, it's that type of stuff. We're all different. We just got to know how to play together nicely and recognize those traits. And, I've worked with all sorts of people from different backgrounds, people with disabilities, physical and, if you say, mental disabilities, cognitive sort of disabilities and everything else. But we've all got strengths. And what I tend to find is that my attention to detail, when I'm zoned in, that's when I'm good. It's my forensic life now. I am focused on the forensic, on the minutiae. I'm really on it. But when I'm off it, and I'm on to something else then. But I've got to train myself to be on that at that time and follow a certain path.
That spins into an alternative form of conversation. Earlier on, I'd like to come back to it if we get the chance and the time. You talked about the reward that top students and that top cadet when you join the military. But if we spin back before we get there, you've just alluded to something. When you're in that zone, the ADHD world will call it the hyperfocus. And I was going to ask you earlier, but it comes back in a different way about how do you then apply being ADHD and so passionately aggressive with what you want to achieve to actually slowing down enough to actually focus on the detail in the granularity for an extended period of time. It's not a flash in the pan thing. How do you get to there? But before we get to there, what are the biggest challenges you have as a person with being ADHD? Because overcoming them has led to who you are. And I think people need to hear about how we overcome our challenges to get to where we are, not just who we've become. How did you get there through those challenges? Because you've alluded to them, but we've not picked it up.
The best tool that I've got is a calendar. And when you're in school and people tell you to do a timetable for your revision, nobody really sticks to it. And you're always sort of cramming at the last minute and all the rest of it. I can't do that because my forensic company depends on me to deliver forensic reports and to be in court giving evidence on certain times, on certain dates. So I have to be precise, very, very precise. So my calendar looks like Tetris when you're looking at it. It's all different colors. And it's a myriad display of forensic work, of talks, the motivational talks I do. So I still do school, universities, and elite athlete talks. I'm doing elite athlete talks next week with a rugby club, a very high one in the UK. But all of it's split up nicely. And I also factor in downtime. So my calendar looks chock-a-block, but there's always a bit of flex every day because I need that flex. I need that step away. I need to go for a walk with my dogs, whether it be having headphones in, listening to something, whether it be podcast, music, or sometimes nothing. And you're just listening to the birds, you're playing with your dogs, you're throwing a ball, whatever. That's the creative bit where all of a sudden your brain relaxes and the magic happens. Mm. And I've learned that through trial and error. I've tried burning the candle all the way through, and you don't enjoy the day. I enjoy the day when I've got a bit of flex and I can end the day on a high and relax, doing whatever, watching whatever on TV, going out for a meal with my wife, etc., etc. We're empty nesters. All the kids are grown up, done university, and all gone. All different corners of the UK. So it's just us rattling around at home. But ultimately, I end the day on a high. But you've got to flex in that creativity space. If you're all work and no play, it will ruin you.
And what about reward? So you talked about, I'd never achieved anything, I'd never won anything. Words to that effect, you said. People with ADHD generally have a fear of rejection, have a fear of missing out, being left out, and are very sensitive to that as a rule because of the hardship of life that's got to there. You got quite animated when you talked about winning something for the first time. Where are you with reward? What's the effect of that on you?
It's a competitive thing. On the reward side of things, I tend to reward myself. So by keeping myself very busy and doing new projects, I just set up a production company. So we're doing stuff for films and TV and docuseries at the moment, which is, I'm not a specialist in it. I'm learning by trial and error, but I'm an ideas factory when I'm coming to things, and so I'm spinning those few plates and everything else. So for me, that's a kind of relaxing because I'm doing something new and I've got good partners.
Stimulates you.
Yeah. So I'm learning something new. I'm going into a different arena.
So that's a reward.
That's a reward for me. It's given me the flex to do something else that I want to do and enjoy in life. Where do I want to go? What do I want to do in life? What's my bucket list? I really don't have a bucket list. And because when we asked earlier, when we were having a quick chat earlier on before starting this, is that, have I slowed down since the military? I've probably sped up. And that's the way I like it. I like being fast, but I'm not in top gear all the way through the day.
And is that, we've got to round out now. What would be, if we pick on that, what would be your core message to somebody that has ADHD, that maybe that teenager that's looking for purpose, but doesn't know how to go about it, is frightened of burning out, not getting reward? You've got all of that success. What would be your core message? I know you're a motivational speaker, but come away from that for a second and let's look at Paul, the ADHD, the person with ADHD that's been successful. What would be your core message to the next generation of you that's at that school in the valleys, really struggling to be understood? What would be your core message for the person with ADHD?
Find your relevance. What would you do if you couldn't fail? That's what I would go for.
If you couldn't fail.
If you couldn't fail, don't worry about failing. What would you want to be? Go back to that primary school thing of an astronaut or whatever you want to be. And there's loads of new career pathways out there now. And in a world of noise, in the internet 3.0, whatever you want to call this new incarnation that we're going through with AI at the forefront, et cetera, what could you do? And what would you do if you couldn't fail and you could just go for it and do it? Tell your teachers that if you're in school, I want to head in this direction. Learn for yourself and make your own pathway. Let the curriculum's there and you can't get rid of that at the moment and you've got to deal with what you dealt with. But let your teachers know, let your family know, or work on it in secret if you don't want to tell anybody. But have your own inner pathway of where you want to go. Have your own idea and don't be embarrassed about it.
And presumably find a way of learning that suits the ADHD and new way of learning, which is not linear and not normalized at all. No. So that
it doesn't have to be. Embrace the chaos.
Absolutely.
Take ownership as well.
Absolutely.
Your eyes come alive when you talk like that. The school kids must just be like, you're a proper role model. Yeah. Proper role model.
But once you have to take ownership. Talk's cheap. As soon as you take action, your body thanks you for it, and you start. My calendar, what I forgot to say on the calendar, I also tick things off.
Right. Reward.
So there you go. Fits in nicely, doesn't it? It just occurred to me. I tick things off.
Yeah.
So when I look back on a given day, otherwise, if I call my mum and dad will say, what have you been up to this week? I don't know where to start. I can't remember what I've done because I've done so much. So what I do before my mum and dad call, or I call them, I have a quick glance through and go, oh yeah, that's what
reward.
Reward.
And then you can tell your folks what you've done, which is more reward because they'll be impressed. They'll say, well done, what was that all about?
But I'm not seeking that aspect from them. It's sort of, because
but you're allowing it.
Yes.
You're facilitating it. And I still think there's something in that. It may be subliminal. Because if you go to the conversation with your folks and you can't answer their questions, that's the alternative to reward, isn't it? That's a struggle. And you've learned they don't want to have that conversation where they don't know how to answer.
No, I think, and of course they're very proud and I've achieved quite a bit since leaving the military. I've achieved lots in the military, but I've achieved a heck of a lot since becoming a civilian again. And they're of a certain age now where I think they don't want any shocks in their lives and everything else, and they like having their son sort of on an even keel, and sort of achieving these wonderful things, and then sort of he's doing stuff on TV. We see him doing podcasts. He's involved with film work. He's still doing this forensic stuff, which is solving big cases and being in court, giving evidence, etc., etc. But it's just about, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Then it is a reward, and I'd never thought of it like that.
We've got to round out.
Yeah, I've loved it. I was quietly thinking then, Professor Dan Nicolau, we had him sat here, and he asked us the question, have you thought about why you have ADHD? And he said, go back 2,000, 3,000 years, and just listening to you earlier, the guy that's leaping out, defending the camp, or going out and hunting, gathering, bringing back. We got a guy from Hunted.
Yeah.
And the stimulation you get, and actually that part of what's so misunderstood about, these kids that can't concentrate, can't sit still. And the fact that you're going back into the class as that role model, understanding so much about it, and being proud to say, I've got ADHD, and actually being able to explain why you have it and why you use it so well, it's just powerful.
Yeah, great message. You may list yourself as a motivational speaker. I think you're just generally a motivational person.
I feel
and I feel energized just talking to you.
Energized.
To you.
Thank you. Yeah, a pleasure to talk with. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Yeah, well done. Thank you.
Thank you.